A simple sweatshirt, a luxury dealership, and a revelation that would change everything. What happens when a store manager underestimates the man who is secretly the new owner of everything? This is the story of Ryan, who was about to discover the true colors of his new business. Ryan parked his car in the back of the parking lot of Prestige Motors, the flagship dealership he had recently purchased in sunny Miami, Florida. The tropical heat beat down on the luxury cars outside, making their shiny finishes almost sparkle in the afternoon sun. He stepped out of his ordinary SUV, took a quick break, and surveyed the storefront. He hadn't dressed to stand out. In fact, a grey sweatshirt, slightly distressed jeans, and sneakers were his outfit for the day. His casual choice had a purpose. He wanted to see how the dealership really worked, how they treated people when they didn't know their new boss was around. As he walked toward the entrance, he noticed a small group of employees chatting near the front desk, the buzz of laughter and casual conversation drifting through the glass doors. Ryan opened the door and walked in. The air-conditioned showroom was a stark contrast to the heat outside, and it smelled of fresh leather and wax. Rows of immaculate cars gleamed under the bright overhead lights. The conversation slowed as he walked in, and Ryan noticed the employees' glances darting between them, their eyes taking in his sweatshirt and sneakers. He could feel the subtle shift in the energy of the place, the kind that spoke louder than words. But he wasn't there to judge, he was there to observe. And then, across the showroom, she appeared. Cynthia. Cynthia was a middle-aged woman with sharp features and even sharper eyes. In her tailored blazer and shiny heels, she exuded authority, and the clipboard tucked under her arm gave her an air of efficiency. She approached with purpose, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Her expression seemed polite, but there was a tension in her smile that Ryan couldn't miss. "Excuse me," Cynthia began, her voice cold and direct. "Can I help you with anything?" Ryan smiled, keeping his cool. "I just came to look around," he said casually, gesturing toward the cars. Cynthia's eyes narrowed, scanning him up and down. Her mask of politeness slipped a little, revealing something less welcoming. "Are you looking to buy a car?" she asked, her tone doubtful. Ryan nodded, still smiling. "Something like that." Cynthia's lips tightened. "Well, we cater to a very specific clientele here. Most of our inventory requires pre-qualification. Perhaps I could recommend—" Before she could finish, another employee called out, "Hey, Cynthia, the delivery guy's here." Her attention wavered for a moment, but her gaze quickly returned to Ryan, as if to make sure he didn't stray too far. Ryan raised an eyebrow, but kept her tone light. "Are you assuming I'm unqualified?" The question seemed to catch her off guard, but only for a brief moment. She quickly regained her composure, her posture stiffening. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she replied with a forced smile. "Those vehicles start in the six figures. Maybe I can direct you to—" Ryan's calm wasn't shaken, but the subtle sting of her assumptions was undeniable. The moment stretched, a tension hanging in the air as Cynthia stared at him, waiting. Ryan glanced around the showroom, pretending to admire one of the nearby cars, a sleek silver coupe with an aggressive design. His fingers brushed the door handle, and he looked back at Cynthia. "Nice car," he said simply. Her brows furrowed slightly, but she forced another smile. "Maybe when you're ready to make a serious inquiry, we can schedule an appointment. For now, I'm going to have to ask you not to touch the vehicles." Ryan stood there for a moment, considering her words before stepping away from the car. He nodded once, hands in his pockets, and gestured for her to continue. "Okay, let's hear what you'd recommend for someone like me." Cynthia blinked, surprised by the directness of the question. Before she could answer, Ryan added, "If you think you know what I need, I'm listening." Her polite facade cracked enough to reveal the impatience beneath. "Maybe something a little more affordable. I can give you directions to a dealership that specializes in pre-owned vehicles." Ryan smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. He'd seen enough. "That's a big assumption," he said. Softly, the statement hung in the air, and for a brief moment Cynthia hesitated. Then, regaining her composure, she straightened her shoulders. "I'll be back with a list of options," she said, walking quickly away. Ryan watched her go, his expression unreadable. He turned back to the silver coupe, his reflection staring back at him in the shiny finish. This was going to be an interesting day. Ryan stood in the center of the showroom, hands in his pockets, his gaze roving the line of cars. He wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but Cynthia's dismissive attitude was hard to ignore. Around him, the people had resumed their conversations, though he still noticed the occasional glance in his direction. It was the kind of scrutiny he'd grown accustomed to over the years, the silent judgment, the coded glances. Cynthia returned a moment later, her clipboard clutched tightly as if it were a shield. Her quick stride and forced smile betrayed her irritation. "Okay," she said, stopping a few feet away from him. "I've compiled a few options that might be more appropriate for your situation." Ryan tilted his head slightly. "My situation?" "Yes," Cynthia replied, her tone dry. She handed him a printout of pre-owned vehicles, each with detailed descriptions and prices well below the dealership's typical offerings. "These are affordable, reliable, fuel-efficient, and practical." Ryan took the list without a word, his eyes scanning the page. A used sedan, an older SUV, a compact hybrid. His lips twitched in mild amusement, but he quickly hid it, folding the paper and tucking it into his pocket. "I appreciate the effort," he said, his tone neutral. Cynthia looked momentarily disarmed by his response, but quickly recovered, her hands on her hips. "Listen," she said, her voice lowering as if she were about to share a secret. "I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Prestige Motors isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time." Ryan met her gaze, his expression calm but unwavering. "And what exactly makes you think I'm not your target customer?" Cynthia hesitated, but only for a split second. "I've been doing this a long time," she said. "I can tell when someone's out of their depth." "Out of their depth?" Ryan repeated, his voice neutral, almost thoughtful. "Interesting." There was a flicker of uncertainty in Cynthia's eyes, but she continued, "I'm just being honest. It's better to be honest than to have someone leave disappointed." Ryan laughed softly, shaking his head slightly. "Honest, huh? I like honesty. How about this? Let me talk to the owner. Think we can make that happen?" Cynthia's eyebrows shot up. For the first time, she looked genuinely taken aback. "The owner?" "That's right," Ryan said, his tone light, almost casual. "I'd like to have a word with him." Cynthia's lips trembled in a weak attempt at a smile. "Well, that's not possible today. The owner doesn't just drop by for casual visits. He's a busy person." "I'm sure It will," Ryan said, nodding slightly. "But maybe you could call him, tell him I'm here. I think he'd like to meet me." Cynthia's smile tightened. She was starting to lose her patience, and it showed. "Look, sir, I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but this is getting ridiculous. I have other customers to attend to. If you're serious about buying a car, we can schedule a meeting with one of our sales consultants. Otherwise what?" Ryan asked, his tone still calm, though there was an unmistakable edge to his voice now. Cynthia's eyes narrowed, her frustration bubbling. "Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ryan stood still, his gaze fixed on hers for a moment. The entire showroom seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone. "Okay," he said, scrolling through his contacts. "I'll make the call myself." Cynthia blinked, her brow furrowing. "What are you doing?" "Just calling the owner," Ryan replied, lifting the phone to his ear. "Shouldn't be long." Cynthia's confidence wavered, her irritation giving way to confusion. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Around them, a few employees had stopped what they were doing, their attention drawn to the scene unfolding. Ryan held up a finger as if to say, "Just a moment." Then he turned slightly, speaking into the phone. "Yes, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine. Just a little misunderstanding. Could you let them know I'm here?" He ended the call and put the phone back in his pocket, turning to Cynthia. "They'll be here shortly," he said simply. Cynthia stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Who did you just call?" Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced around the showroom, his gaze lingering on the staff who were now watching intently. "I guess we'll find out," he said, his tone almost playful. The tension in the room was palpable, the weight of it pressing down on everyone present. Ryan, on the other hand, stood casually next to one of the luxury SUVs, his calm demeanor only adding to the tension. The few employees scattered around the showroom whispered among themselves, stealing glances at the scene unfolding. It was clear that everyone was waiting for something or someone. The sound of the main doors opening broke the silence. A smartly dressed man in a navy blue suit walked in, his polished shoes clicking softly against the floor. His expression was serious but warm, and his eyes immediately found Ryan. "Mr. Miller," the man said with a wide smile, extending his hand as he approached. "It's good to see you." Ryan returned the handshake with a firm touch. A small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "Thanks for coming, Dave. I appreciate it." The room collectively stiffened. Cynthia's clipboard nearly slipped from her hands as her eyes darted between Ryan and Dave, the dealership's regional director. Her confusion quickly turned to visible alarm. "Wait, Mr. Miller?" she echoed, her voice uncertain. Dave turned to her, his friendly demeanor changing to something more professional, almost curt. "Cynthia, I see you've met Mr. Miller," Dave said. Cynthia blinked, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. "I didn't know." "You didn't know he's the new owner of this dealership?" Dave finished for her, his tone sharp. He glanced at Ryan, an apologetic expression on his face. "I hope this wasn't your ideal welcome." Ryan held up his hand, stopping him. "It's okay, Dave. I think Cynthia and I just got off on the wrong foot." His voice was calm, but there was a weight to his words that made the entire room pay attention. Cynthia's face went pale, and she took a step back, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a lifeline. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know." "You didn't know?" "Didn't know what?" Ryan asked, his tone still, gentle but firm. "That I could own a place like this, that someone like me could actually belong here." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked utterly lost. "I didn't mean to." Ryan held up his hand, cutting her off. "It's okay, Cynthia. Really." He took a step closer, his voice dropping just enough to make everyone lean in. "But let me ask you something. If I wasn't the owner, would you have treated me differently? Would you have given me the same respect you would someone who walked in? Here wearing a suit and tie?" Cynthia opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. Ryan nodded, as if his silence was answer enough. He turned to Dave, his voice carrying a new authority. "Let's gather everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a little chat about how things are run around here." The employees filed into the elegant conference room, which was now thick with tension. The room, designed to impress with its glass walls and modern furniture, felt stifling today. Cynthia sat near the back, her usual confidence replaced by a nervous stillness. Ryan stood at the head of the table, calm and collected, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Dave stood near the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he watched the crowd take their seats. The quiet murmur of whispers died away as Ryan cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping the group. "Thank you all for joining me on such short notice," Ryan began, his tone measured but firm. "For those of you who don't know, my name is Ryan Miller, and as of last month, I am the new owner of Prestige Motors." There were murmurs of surprise from a few employees, their reactions ranging from curiosity to embarrassment. Cynthia sank further into her chair, avoiding eye contact. "I came here today dressed casually for a reason," Ryan continued, his voice firm. I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows who I am. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel when they walk through these doors. He let the words settle for a moment before continuing. What I experienced today was disappointing. I was judged not by what I could bring to the table, but by how I looked. And I'm not here to point fingers at anyone in particular, but we need to talk about what that says about the culture of this dealership. Cynthia shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushed. Ryan's eyes briefly met hers before returning to the group as a whole. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about every person who walks through these doors, every customer who doesn't fit someone's preconceived notion of what a luxury car buyer should look like." One of the younger salespeople raised his hand hesitantly. Ryan waved him off. "Go ahead, Mr. Peterson," the man began nervously. "I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions." Ryan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I understand that," he said. "We all have biases, whether we want to admit it or not. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just try to be fair. We have to actively challenge those biases. We have to create an environment where everyone feels respected, regardless of their appearance, background, or anything else." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "This dealership has built a reputation for excellence. But excellence isn't just about the cars we sell. It's about the experience we deliver. And from now on, this experience will be built on respect, inclusion, and fairness." There was a ripple of agreement around the room, though some faces remained wary. Ryan's gaze settled on Cynthia. Cynthia sat frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Cynthia," he said gently but firmly, "I want to give you a chance to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say?" All eyes turned to her. She hesitated, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. I made a mistake," she admitted, her cheeks flushed. "I misjudged you, and for that I'm truly sorry." Ryan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "I hope this experience serves as a reminder to all of us, not just you, that change starts with accountability." He turned to the group. "Going forward, we will implement new training programs to ensure this dealership lives up to the values I believe in. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity. No exceptions. If anyone has a problem with that, now is the time to speak up." The room fell silent. The silence in the conference room was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. No one spoke, but the weight of Ryan's words lingered, pressing down on everyone present. Ryan let the silence stretch just long enough to emphasize his point before he spoke again, his voice calm but resolute. "Good," he said. "I'm glad to see we're all in agreement. Change isn't always easy, but it's necessary, and this dealership will lead by example." He took a step back from the table, his hands resting lightly on its edge as he leaned forward slightly. "Let me make something clear. I didn't come here today to put anyone down. I came here to understand what kind of culture I inherited and how we can improve it." His eyes moved to Cynthia, who was still sitting quietly in the back. "Cynthia," he said, his tone softening just enough to make it clear he wasn't attacking her. "You're an experienced manager, and I'm sure you've worked hard to get where you are, but today was a wake-up call for you and for all of us." Cynthia looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time. "I understand," she said, her voice shaky but sincere. "I messed up, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." Ryan nodded. "I believe in second chances," he said simply, "but accountability comes first. I'll meet with you individually to discuss next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward." He straightened, turning his attention to the rest of the team. "We're not just selling cars here. We're building trust, creating relationships, and representing a standard of excellence. If you're committed to that, I'm here to support you every step of the way." There was a murmur of agreement, louder and more genuine this time. The staff seemed to relax, the initial tension giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. Even Dave, who had been standing quietly near the door, nodded in approval. Ryan smiled slightly, the kind of smile that suggested both relief and determination. Very well, then let's get back to work, and remember, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell. As the employees began to file out of the room, Ryan noticed Cynthia lingering near the door. She approached him hesitantly, her hands wringing nervously. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice low, "I just want to thank you for giving me a chance to do better. I won't let you down." Ryan stared at her for a moment before answering, his voice steady. "I hope you mean it," he said. "Cynthia, actions speak louder than words, but I believe people can change if they're willing to try." She nodded, her eyes sincere. "I am." Ryan watched her leave before turning to Dave. "We'll schedule a staff meeting next week," he said. "I want to make sure everyone knows what's expected from here on out." Dave smiled. His respect for Ryan was evident. "You got it, boss." As Ryan walked back into the showroom, he looked around at the cars, their shiny surfaces reflecting the afternoon light. He thought about how much work lay ahead, but for the first time that day, he felt optimistic. This wasn't just about running a dealership. It was about creating something bigger, a space where people were judged on their character, not their looks, and Ryan was ready to lead the way.